we welcome you back to Mornings with Brian and Tyler, and today, which we believe is Friday,
Pretty sure.
we are reading verses 33 through 41. Tyler?
Now when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which is translated, my God, why have you forsaken me? Some of those who stood by when they heard that said, Look, he is calling for Elijah. Then someone ran and filled a sponge full of sour wine, put it on a reed, and offered it to him to drink, saying, Let him alone, let us see if Elijah will come to take him down. Then Jesus cried out with a loud voice and breathed his last. The veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. So when the centurion who stood opposite him saw that he cried out like this and breathed his last, he said, Truly this man was the Son of God. There were also women looking on from afar, among whom were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James the Less, and of Joses, and Salome, who also followed him and ministered to him when he was in Galilee, and many other women who came up with him to Jerusalem.
All right. One of the few things we did not touch on was when they parted his garments. Yesterday, casting lots. When you read the Gospels, it says that his outer robe they did not cast lots for because it was woven out of one solid piece. Jesus' robe was extremely expensive, but like his shoes, any other clothing and garments that were underneath his robe, that's what they divided that up, and then they cast lots to see who'd get the main one. You say, why'd they do that? Well, that's just what they did. Sometimes when you read the Bible, you just have to go, well, that's just what they did. And people are like, well, that's just weird. Any more weird than people putting blocks of cheese on their head to stand outside in freezing weather and cheer for people throwing around a ball made out of pigskin? We have our own type of barbaric traditions. Every country has barbarism. Some it's just more fun to watch on television. But Tyler, what in today's reading, what catches you?
I think it's kind of odd that they first tried to offer Jesus back at the very beginning, and back in verse 23, they tried to give him wine mingled with myrrh to drink, but he did not take it. And so now here we are a couple of hours later, and it's let's fill up a sponge with sour wine, put it on a reed, and offer it to him to drink, because they seem to expect a different response from Jesus at this point. And then the other one was the continuation of the mocking, where in this case they're saying, look, he's calling for Elijah, which I'm guessing is because it's kind of similar to Elijah's call to God from when Elijah's in the wilderness and feels he's been abandoned by God, and so therefore they're like, well, he's quoting Elijah, he must be calling for Elijah.
Yeah.
That one stuck to me. Well, just when we were reading it again just now.
Well, when you read the old King James, Elijah's written Elias, Eli. So in the Hebrew and in the Aramaic, there was probably a much more subtle difference between the two sounds. And what you had mentioned, they had already got him crucified. And at 9 o'clock, they got nothing better to do in the morning from 9 until noon and walk by. And the people who were there, crucify him. They're like, hey, all right, they're crucifying him. And they're like, hey, let's go out and mock him for fun. We've got nothing better to do on a Friday morning. And now here it is, the 6th hour, or noon. Daylight and darkness in ancient times were divided into 4 parts, right? 3rd hour, 6th hour, 9th hour, 3, noon, 6, 9, 12, 3, and then 6. 6 p.m. begins the nighttime shift. 6 a.m. begins the daytime. So that's when you're looking at hours. Another thing, man, there's darkness over the land until the 9th hour. And I know people are like, well, people back then were more superstitious. I got news for you. People are still superstitious now. And I know you remember the ads before the Super Bowl with some of the Kelsey family and all that. They're like, no, Travis is winning because I've done this. And And people have all these rituals. I got news for y'all. Number one, an eclipse is not supposed to last 3 hours. A natural eclipse does not last 3 hours. If the sun did not shine for 3 hours over our entire country, there'd be panic and chaos in the streets. Okay, so this is a huge deal. And this is what Peter will talk about in Acts chapter 2 when he says, the moon and the sun, the blood and the darkness before that great. He says, this is it. And he's talking about what happens on Pentecost, but the events he references is the crucifixion. And yeah, they thought he was crying out to Elijah, but what you said about the drinks. People, the Romans had this wonderful tradition. They're like, here, take some of this sour wine, because they would mix it with drugs and other stuff. And someone, oh, that would help lessen the pain. Ah, it helped lessen the pain. The person would say all kinds of outrageous things, but it allowed them to suffer longer and more. Because once they dropped the pain with the narcotics, the body could endure more. And then when it wore off, guess what? Wham! And so Jesus does not lose his presence of mind through this whole process. And there's a lesson in that for us too. Other thoughts, my brother?
No, sir.
With Adam Bryan, and this is
Tyler.
And we bid you a good Friday. Lord willing, come back for Saturday. Saturday will be short. And otherwise, if you don't come back for Saturday, we hope to see you at church services on Sunday, either live or in person.
Yes, sir.
All right. Till then.